Hello and welcome to this Geffen QuickVid on digital signage. My name is Jason Fitzgerald. I'm the product manager for digital signage here at Geffen. And what we're going to be doing today is going over creating a basic project, or more than likely our first project. So what I'm going to do is this is our default workspace that we have open here in the browser section in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And to create our first project, I'm going to dive into the My Projects folder. And all of our projects that we're creating will be done inside of the My Projects folder. Simply right-click in a blank area inside of the browser section here and click on New Project. And this will open for us the New Project dialog box where I can name my project. So we'll go ahead and we'll call this First Project. And we'll choose a format of 16 by 9. Because this is the display that we'll be using is a 16 by 9 aspect ratio display. The DSC doesn't need to know what the actual resolution or output resolution is because we're using a file format called SVG, which is vector based. So what we do need though, however, is to know what the aspect ratio of the display we're going to be using so we have an idea of how to correctly format our project. So 16 by 9 format aspect ratio, we have the option for doing 4 by 3, 16 by 10, 9 by 16. These are your portrait mode type displays, and even a multi-screen project the DSC is definitely capable of handling. So our target box is the DSC box. I'll just go ahead and click OK, and that's going to create for us a brand new project. There it is, first project. Now I'm going to open this up by double clicking on it, and you'll notice it opens up into its own tab. And the reason is your project, you want to think about it as its own entity. Right? Everything that's inside of this project directory is what gets uploaded to the Digital Signage Creator product. So I can't navigate up and out of here. So this basically essentially becomes the root of my project. And inside of the root, I've already got a file here for me called the index.svg. This is essentially our master file. We use this to create our project. And in fact, our box really is only reading back this file, this index.svg file. Think about it like an index.html file. So I'm going to double click on it, and what's going to happen is when I click on it, it'll attempt to open it up here in the preview section. And the layers section on the right here now becomes available. And as you can see, I've got my first layer, and it's just simply a text box. So let's go ahead. I'm going to delete this. And so we're starting basically with a clean slate. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import in a background, right? Most of our projects are going to have some sort of background. Some are definitely more useful than others. So first thing I'm going to do is going to click on this little icon here, or this option, and this is our default workspace tab. It'll open up a new tab, which always takes us back to our default workspace, where I can find the My Devices, My Projects, and the My Templates folders here. So by double clicking on the My Templates folder, you'll see we've got a number of different templates that are available for use out of the box. We've got multi-screen templates, news, interactivity. What I want here is this backgrounds folder. By double-clicking on this, it'll open up and give me a couple of subfolders here. I've got a 9 by 16, 4 by 3. What I want is a 16 by 9 background because that's my project size. So I'm going to double-click on that, and I've got a number of backgrounds here that I can use. So I'm going to take a simple one here, possibly this swirl.svg, and to get it into my project, I can drag and drop it directly into the layers column over here on my right. Okay, so once it's actually inside of my project, I can then simply just manipulate it, the object here inside of my preview area. I can move its position, I can change its size, all right? And to make this a useful default background, I'm just going to right click on it and I get a whole bunch of transformation options. I'm going to click on full screen. And now I've got a full screen background. Now, I'm going to save my project, and it's a good idea to save often because if you haven't noticed, there is no undo function inside of the software. It's very easy to accidentally do something like that and move the project, or I'm sorry, move the asset inside of my preview area. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reposition it. But by saving often, if we do make a mistake like this, I can simply click on revert, and it'll revert me back to my last save. What I can do is, knowing that this is my background, I can click on this icon over here in the layer. Now every layer will have this. This is basically the lock option. So once I do that, I can't click anymore inside of my preview area and manipulate this media asset. So we've got a background. What we're going to probably do next now is go ahead and add maybe a simple banner across the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the new text layer button that's over here in the toolbar at the top. And that'll create a blank text box here with some text in there that says double click to edit. So I can, of course, double click inside of the box, in which case I'll have the ability to edit the text that's in here. And you'll notice my toolbar here at the top has now been converted into some simple text manipulation options. So let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and click and type in welcome to Geffen, just a simple banner. I can, of course, by highlighting this, I can change the font, and there are a number of default fonts here that we can use. We do also have the ability to import our own fonts, and that'll probably be in another video. But let's go ahead and change this to our impact font. It's a fairly useful font. We can, of course, change the color. Let's go ahead and we'll make this white. And maybe we'll grow it a little bit here. There we go. Welcome to Geffen. Now that I've got my text here, I want to make this a banner, so I'm going to position it here at the top of my screen. Just manipulate its size. And what I can do is also give it, let's say, a background fill. So you can double click inside of this text box to enable text editing. What we can also do is go to the properties of this layer. Now again, every layer has a lock option. It also has this little ellipses button down here right below it, which is the properties button. This will open up the specific properties for that layer. So by clicking on that, I get my media description box, or the properties for this layer, this text layer. I can again manipulate the text, change the font, the color, the size. We can also do a couple of options which weren't available before, which is, for example, giving it a background fill. By clicking on this background fill, my background fill color here is now not grayed out. By clicking on this, it'll bring up the color panel. So I can specifically put in a hex value to a color. I can change the RGB value for a specific color. Those of you who've already been working in, let's say, the graphics business are familiar with hex codes. So if you're working with a customer who has a specific hex value for a color, college, university, a bank, any kind of institution, they'll probably have a style guide, in which case there'll be a color that they specifically want to use, and you can get the hex color and put it right into here. I'm just going to go ahead and make this black. Right. We can also add a border stroke if we would like, as well as control the opacity for that background fill. This opacity controls the background fill. This opacity here controls the overall opacity of my layer. So I'm going to click OK, and you'll notice now I've got a black background with my text. There are justification options as well. We won't dive into that quite yet. The next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and let's add some outside media assets. All right. So the Digital Signage Director is a tool for, really, it's a layout application where we're bringing in a whole bunch of media assets and then laying them in some meaningful way inside of our application or inside of our project. So how do we get them into our project? Well, we have to bring them into the software, and to do that, we first have to have selected our project folder. Right? So inside my project folder, I'm going to import in some media assets for use. So let's do that. What we're going to need is to have a Windows Explorer window open with some assets. All right, so I've got a simple folder here with a couple of videos, logos, and images, and we're going to import some of those in. So I'm going to open up my images folder here, and I've got some, let's see, some 4x3 images that I want to bring in. And to bring it into the software is a simple matter of dragging and dropping. So I can grab an individual image and drag it into the browser section, and you'll get your little import dialog. I'll click OK. And there's my media asset. I've now imported it into the software. And of course I can use this by dragging it from the browser section into my layers of my index file. And there it is. Resize, manipulate, and move. Now, that's nice. We brought in an image. Let's say, for example, we want to bring in multiple images or multiple assets. We can definitely do that. So I'm just going to delete this. And let's go back to that Windows folder. And let's go ahead and grab multiple objects. I can bring in multiple objects all at once, or what I can do is I can bring in entire folders, and it will keep the subfolder structure. So if I grab this entire 4x3 folder, I can drag that in, and sure enough, there we go. I've got all of my images here that I imported just a second ago, and there's that subfolder, or that folder with images that I just imported right now. So let's clean up this project a little bit. I'm going to select all these images here that I imported as individuals and delete them. So now I have my index file, which is our master file. the one that we're actually working in. We have our swirl, which is our background, which has been imported automatically. And we have, of course, our 4x3 images folder. Now, useful digital signage applications in most cases carry a playlist of some sort. And this software is definitely no different. In fact, we have the ability to make playlists. And this is a playlist that contains images, videos. It can contain entire projects if we want. Those are definitely all available. And to do that, I can right-click inside my browser section and choose the new playlist option. And here I can name my playlist. So we'll just call it playlist for simplicity's sake. And I've got now a playlist. So to use this, I'm just going to, again, drag and drop it from my browser section into my actual open project or my open index file. Now, once it's in here, I've got a blank playlist with nothing in it. So how do we populate this with actual content? Well, what we can do is we can actually dive into the playlist layer, or this playlist.svg file. And to do that, you can simply double-click on that object. And what happens is we've dived into that layer, and we're now specifically only working with the playlist file. You'll notice that it's segregated from the rest of the screen. In fact, this object now is the only thing that is highlighted. Everything else is kind of grayed out behind it. That's telling us that we're working specifically with this media asset. So we've got the playlist. We've got now a media column instead of a layers column. And what we're going to do is we're going to import some media in. So let's go ahead and do that. I brought in this folder. I'm going to double click on it to open it. And what I can do is grab individual files, or I can select multiple files and then again drag them from the browser section over here to the right hand column. All right, I'm going to click apply, which is going to initiate this change that I've just made, and begin playback for my project. And there we go. I've got a simple playlist of objects already playing back. Now, what can go inside of this playlist? Well, we've got images. We can put in video files. We can do full playlists of projects for, let's say, demo projects. We're really not limited to any asset over here in this playlist column. And we can mix and match if we want. If we want to change the order, for example, I can simply grab a layer and drag it. So, for example, we want these flowers, this garden JPEG, to be at the top. I'll just simply grab, drag it, bring it to the top. Once I apply it, it'll make that change. Hey, there we go. There's the garden.jpg image. All right, very simple. So let's save our project. If I want to dive back out into my main index, I can simply do that by pressing the back button here. So this is our navigation tool that'll take us back out a layer. So by double clicking on the playlist, we were diving in. Clicking on back, we basically dove right back out. So we've got a simple playlist here. We've got our background image there. What about, let's say, some clip art? Maybe even some effects. We can definitely add or use some of those. So let's